Welcome. Good evening. Before I say some very short introduction about our guests, just an information that this lecture tonight will be in two parts. So after 30 minutes around, we have a break and you can buy some drinks or whatever. Our guests tonight, it's not necessary that I say a lot because most of you know them better than I do. From my perspective, I just want to say that the university can be very grateful to have such a special person teaching in his very personal way, doing architecture, doing art, giving lectures and making exhibitions. Frederick, I have great respect from your work, and I'm really curious to listen to the music we will hear from Per Ingolf Skare, the guitarist, and your lectures. Please welcome our guests Fredrik Lund and Per Ingolf Skare.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Per Ingolf, for the music. It's a challenge, of course, to play 2 long sets like that without, well, with just one small break. So I think he was the one who did the job here. I was just hanging around, you could say. But I'm actually going to my contribution for the evening will be that I will tell you what you've heard. And there was first Preludium number 3. I don't know how to say this in English. Preludium, maybe? Preludium. By the Brazilian, Heitor Villa-Lobos. There was, after that, you heard a very long sequence, or a piece, by the Japanese Yukihiro Yoko. It's called Sakura. It was 7.5 minutes, I think. Then comes Etude. How do you say in English? Etude. Etude. That's French. More French. Etude numéro 3 by Leo Brouwer, the Cuban. Then there was Preludium number 4 by Heitor Villa-Lobos, the second one by him. And then there was Hommage à Toulouse-Lautrec by Eduardo Sáenz de la Maza, Spanish. Eduardo Sáenz de la Maza. And then there was the break. It was silent. And then, after the break, we heard Etude 4, 2, and 5, 2, and 4 by Leo Brouwer, again, the Cuban. Then we heard a piece called Guitar by Nikita Koshkin, the Russian. Then we heard Elogio de la Danza by Leo Brouwer, again. They're called, the 2 pieces called Lento and Obstinato. And then there was a big gap in time. We went all the way back to Johann Sebastian Bach, the German. Allemande is called the piece. That was the second last. And then we heard Verano Porteño by Astor Piazzolla from Argentina. Well, thank you again for the music, and thanks. Thank you. If there would be one, I would. Yeah. We do. Oh. Yeah.
Do we have a microphone that we can pass around? Sorry, not this.
That would mean that we have this one.
We do it with that.
Slightly, yeah.
Who wants to start?
How about you could ask where you can give lessons? You could ask where and when. That's one good question, I think. I would if I could. I mean, the feelings in Oslo. No, yeah.
How important is music for you?
Well, the music has, especially this music, or some of this music, has become very, very important to me because when I first heard it, I thought it was full, especially the South American, there, Villa-Lobos and and Brauer and Piazzolla is a music that is maybe it's much about what we lack here is so much passion and so much feeling and so very much. It feels very spontaneous and very there's a lot of humor. Very happy music, I think, and it gives me very strong feelings when I hear this music. And we actually started working together quite a few years back, and then we've had a break, and now we're taking it up again. And it's been wonderful, but because of our collaboration, he's been given orders from me to start digging and finding other pieces by these people, and we keep finding things and put it into our repertoire. So I think the music is extremely playful. That's maybe something I like very much, and it's very there's a lot of passion in it. That's maybe my answer. Yeah. I think it's. I find it very inspiring in working with my tools or my means of expression, and then we started to talk about the dialogue or the possible interaction and the things that the energies that might come up and we might start something that these different languages would start to communicate, and that I find extremely interesting. I think we do that. We don't do that very much. We're very humans are very sort of, and I'm speaking to myself basically. Then, if I say that we like to stick to that thing we can do best, but I think it's very challenging. If you, I was thinking today actually that before or during the afternoon, I was thinking, why not try to involve a dance group in some kind of performance and try to involve other means of expressions as well. Would be extremely interesting, I think. I've seen people dance in architecture and about architecture and using spaces and so on. That I find really interesting. So it's been a pleasure to work with Per because he knows me quite well, and he knows my work, and he thinks sometimes that he's very good at picking or finding material that has the potential to communicate well with what I do. So it's been a wonderful collaboration, I think. Yeah.
As you know, we are discussing a bit the tools in this series and what influence the tools have on our results at the end. We feel that you work with a lot of sensibility with your hands, and you do this with the tools that you use, with the analog tools. Is this an intentional choice that you say the results are better because and that's why I use these tools, or is it just you use what you try to master best, or do you think it is easy to have similar results with digital tools?
Well, to be honest, I have to say that much of this material that you've seen today has been through two processes, or three maybe, and the first one is an analog process, where I work with, you've seen some pieces of wood and some stones, or just a line by charcoal or whatever, or a pencil, or I use my mail line when I draw the first sketches, and so, or sketching by hand. But then a lot of this material has also been done through a second process, which with extremely competent people that are present today working with computers, and so it's and that is increasing the possibility communicate it better. So I embrace these new tools. I think for some reason I've been known to not to sort of think that this is not good. It's not at all like that. I think it's fantastic, all the new tools, but it's a question of when you use them and what for. I mean, nothing can beat computers when you come to the phase of doing the construction or the production drawings. Is absolutely fantastic tool, of course. I mean, but I think for me it's also probably something about you know, it's a few years back since I was a student, and I had a wonderful teacher, a Spanish, Ramon Isern, a Catalan, who was, and several other teachers who was actually at the time very, very international staff at the school, also as today. But and I don't know, they were very eager to you know, to work with collages and to build models, physical models, and I just love that. So I think I should continue to do it. You know, and but one thing I would like to say is that when you've seen a lot of pictures of these balsa models, and I do think that it's a tool that is relatively quick. It's very precise, and you can very quickly build up a three-dimensional model sketching. I love this material myself. I mean, it could be cardboard, but I think balsa is really fantastic because it has some value of its own, much more than the cardboard has. I mean, it's sort of at least communicating to me, and I think it's a very, very. I think it's a sad story if people, young architects, start designing by digital or 3D model as the first thing they do when they start a project, because I just think it's obvious that you might, you know, you might lose some very, very important aspects of working in 3D if you don't actually make a 3D, however small. I mean, can be really small, can be bigger, and as a examining tool, I think it's fantastic. So, but this is there's nothing new in this, but this is my personal thing, and I like also very much the. It's been like I often think that. Well, I'm mostly. I mean, I'm trained as an architect, and I love architecture, but I'm not really an architect after all, because I'm not patient. You know, you have to be so patient when you're an architect. I'm not patient at all, and that's difficult because I think I'm more. You know, I guess if you work with just art or have sort of a free situation there where you have just yourself and to relate to, you can be much more brutal and much stronger and much faster and do your thing. And this is some of the poems were a little bit about that. I mean, discussing, you know, the terms and the time we live in terms of building codes and it's all about values. I mean, society. There's a huge group of bureaucrats in Oslo that tries to protect us, and it was in the first place really good. I mean, it's obvious that we should be protected from fire. You know, someone should think that in a place like this, you should have a few doors to be able to take people out. But it's just gone too far. I mean, now it's like the next thing is that we have to wear helmets inside and in case we fall. And, you know, it's getting ridiculous and it's getting very difficult. I know a very, very, very clever, prominent old architect in Oslo who's been designing houses for 50 years. He says now that he cannot do projects anymore because of this. You know, it's getting ridiculous in a way, and there's very little, very little resistance. I feel there's frustration, but you have to find ways to work with it. And I find this one. This is for me. This is a way to work with it. You know, yeah.
Is this a reason why you rather do small projects?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's complicated. It's a lot of both will and coincidences and things, you know, how things happen along the way. But I'm quite happy doing small projects that I care for a lot, and I think I want them to be really good. I'd rather have a small production that is really good than a huge, I mean, volumes like that. So that's just how I like to work. I like to control things, you know. But on the other hand, you can say that, you know, the Scandinavian scenario is kind of a very it's a isolated island of its own. With its is perfectly. It's like a small paradise, you know, on Earth where we don't have all those a lot of problems, big problems that I have in the big countries with enormous urbanization and that. I mean, so it's we're very lucky in that respect, but well, yeah.
A lot of your poems are about the place before the house is built on top of it. How does this affect your architecture?
Nice question. Maybe it's also about the house, the place inside the house after it's built. I like very much to think of if you're. I try sometimes to try to think upside down or the other way about building houses, because if you're not conscious about it, you take everything for granted, sort of. And I try to challenge myself and say, if I'm on the fourth floor in a building, I'm actually standing up in the air. I mean, I'm actually, I shouldn't be there, you know. I'm actually standing on a level of a framework that someone has erected up in the air, and it's sort of, it's interesting to think of architecture that way. You know, it's like, or let's say, when I was very lucky to be for a month in Cappadocia, the high plateau in central Turkey, where they have this soft stone that they used to dig out houses for. They say that they need 1 month with the help of the family to dig out a new house for a young couple, young married couple, and that's subtracting mass from the mountain. And I was in this canyon that has is a curving canyon that reminded me a lot of a street in a big city in Sweden, or a city. A curving space, long space, slightly curving, and I was thinking, and there was a lot of holes in the wall, and it was actually mass subtracted from the rocks on either side, instead of a structure built up, a framework that we always do, some sort of framework or stacking, you know. So it's just I like to. I find it challenging to try to think in that way, because maybe it's possible to see this. This is a very strange human activity that we actually keep on building these very heavy things, and it's actually quite new. I mean, it's not. You don't have to go very many years back. No, we didn't do that. We did that very little. Some very big mountains in Egypt, but here, I mean, it was just all we did was, you know, live in caves, and then maybe tents, and then maybe some small piles of you know, taking. It's called very lazy that you use the axe and the tree goes boom, and then you sort of carry it along, and you stack it on top of another tree. It's quite primitive actually, but can get very beautiful too. We see that in a different way. We say, oh, beautiful lofted hus, but it's of course it was a way for hundreds of years to protect ourselves from the climate, and it was perfect. It was made wonderful or extremely good protection, And that's another thing that I like to say. I would like to do poems about architecture as protection, because that's really one very, very basic thing about architecture that we've maybe also lost a little bit on the way in this urbanization. Our time of urbanization is actually in this part of the world we are protecting ourselves from the cold, but in the huge or the larger part of the world, it's the opposite, protecting from the heat and the sun, and also the architecture as enclosing spaces to keep someone on the outside and someone on the inside makes it very exclusive. The wall is actually an extremely exclusive thing because it separates someone from being outside, and then someone who belongs to that place should be or can go inside, and that's why I started to think about the door. What is the door really? It's part of the wall, but it's when it's open, it's letting someone through, and it's the air. It's the air flows in and out. So it's just it's a hobby.
I was thinking about Drammen, where the bus station. This is a house made of wood, and my idea is that the house around are made of concrete or glass. Or so, what do the house made of wood in the middle of a city made of concrete and glass said says?
What does it say? Well, how does it feel to be the bus station there among those huge, heavy neighbors? Yeah, some old and some new. I think, well, it's actually the bus station is dressed up. Is like a steel construction at the masquerade, because it's a dressed up steel construction. It has put on the wooden coat, so it's cheating. It is actually a steel construction. But it has secondary constructions in wood and fillings, and then the panels, the cladding is in oak tree. Yeah, it's so it's not a genuine steel construction, but I don't know. It's interesting to think of how it's been aging, because it's been aging in a rather unbehaved way. It's getting sort of very dark here and not very dark here, and so some people think that is ugly, and personally I think it is very nice, but there is a limit, you could say. But most of all, I think it's quite happy there, because it's public. I think it's a happy house because it's open always. You can always walk through under it, and it's a kind of a long filter in the urban square. You can walk through or diagonally or whatever in different directions. So I think public houses like that are happy because they're being used a lot. And I know that, well, it was maybe not such a big challenge to do a better bus station than the one before it. It was not such a pleasant building in concrete. It was actually known as the most dangerous place in the town to be standing in the bus station waiting for the bus. So it was very, it was very easy to make something that would be slightly better than that. Anyway, no, I think it's happy. It's like a big urban furniture piece. I think in a rather it's a town that is quite. The 60s, 70s has been really hard on this town, as you know, and it's I think it's quite happy there. Yeah.
You always use wood?
No, well, I must say I'm very fond of wood, but I would definitely not. Let's say the observatory, if it comes to construction, which it looks like, you know, the one up near Røros, where there's this strange light phenomenon. That's going to be a steel frame with corten steel or rusty steel cladding. So that's going to be throughout a steel building, which I like, because it's going to be quite an alien, or it's standing there on legs on the higher plateau, you know, above the tree level. I think it's rather nice that it's got a contrasting. I think I would, if I had commissions that would be in larger cities, I would definitely. I wouldn't mind. I mean, I would work with materials, and I might have to work, of course, also with materials such as concrete and steel. And yeah, it's just maybe it's a result of that. I've been mostly working in small scales, I think. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, Luca.
Well, okay. Thank you very much for a beautiful lecture. I really enjoyed a lot.
Thank you.
I have a simple question. I've been wondering if I should ask or not, but maybe I just do that.
Yes.
Well, since I moved to Trondheim, I think 3 years and now 4 years ago, I've been hearing about energy Talibans or sustainability politicians and stuff like that. And I have to say, I really enjoyed your poems, and I think they're beautiful and they really make me laugh. But to a certain extent, on the other hand, well, you're speaking, okay, environmental, blah, 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 and then sustainability, blah, 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 and so on. But you speak about architecture as a shelter and protection from climate, and so to a certain extent, you're part of the discussion.
Oh, yes.
So how do you see yourself in regard? I don't use the word sustainability, but inside that discussion, because to a certain extent, our students, they need to learn to cope with that.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know what to say.
Well, I think one thing that we would need at the school, if we talk about the school here, for instance, is we should have a new department that consists of very clever and very critical practicing architects that would have this discussion going in relation to that it is an architecture school, and then that we want to make very good architecture and see how things develop and analyze things that go on and try to invite people that are really in this discussion, I think. In their daily work. Because you can say that however difficult, there are always ways to, you have to relate somehow to the law. And I think it's a very good idea that we want to make houses that use less and less energy to be heated. Of course, who wouldn't agree to that? But we have to think, if the consequences of that thought would be that we would suffer, or the house would suffer, or we could not make. When we come to a point where we cannot make architecture that speaks and has a will and has something, wants to say something, and has passion in it, then we've gone so far in satisfying this aspect of architecture that we cannot do the other things. And I just think that we should need a discussion where we a sort of value discussion where we have to say that if we don't, if we go on in this direction, we're going to lose something very, very important that is actually architecture, probably, or could be in the worst case. So, obviously, there's a lot of people thinking of this, and maybe this is not new what I'm saying, but that's that has to be a critical. I get really afraid when you have a lot of sort of people running in the same direction and everyone screaming the same words, and there's no one saying, hey, are we really going in the right direction? Because, and that's why I like to write a poem like this, because it says, I mean, it's used commercially everywhere now, that every firm that writes a text about themselves, whether it's they're making chewing gum or whether it's an you know, it's a airline company. They're writing wonderful texts about sustainability and how sustainable everything is, and that it's very sustainable now to fly. And yeah, but they're using this commercially everywhere. And I think if we look at the development in Norway, for instance, is if you have an axis on the one direction, you have how often these words occurs in texts, such as sustainability, and on the other axis you have consumption of fuel, jet fuel. The curve would go like this during the last 20 years in Norway, like this. I mean, it's just going up. There's more talk, and there's more talk and more talk, and there's more and more consumption. We fly and fly and fly more and more and more. And somehow this all this stuff drizzling down from these planes over the mountains, and of course we don't know. And also, but it's like it's kind of it feels like it's a society speaking with a double tongue, you could say. Huh? That there's a lot of talk and a lot of, but at the same time, it's how things actually happen is more and more consumption. And then some fantastic politicians have come up with the idea that we can actually, if we pay, we don't have to have a bad conscience. That's really fantastic. I mean, we have a lot of money, we can just pay, and we don't have to think about it anymore. It's fantastic. When I saw a Tesla super electric car with Bellona on the side in Oslo, and I was thinking, yeah, Bellona, yeah, it's electric, yeah, that's right, it's electric, but it doesn't cost. I mean, where's the power coming from, and does it cost much to produce such a car? A Tesla, it's cost, I think, 800,000-900,000 kroner. Does it take energy to produce it? Where are the parts and the materials coming from? And this is very, very, very complex. But it's like if you just have that, you give that sign, politically correct sign. This is electric. It's a beautiful sports car, but it's just to give that sign. It's electric, then it's okay. It's Bellona says it is fantastic, and that's really. It's getting very strange, I think. But now I was going a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the lecture as well. But do you have a solution for it?
For what?
For what you're saying about sustainability and the future and how the society is acting right now?
No. Oh, wow. Yes, I do actually. It's right here. Just a minute. Well, I'm sorry. Yes. Well, I think it's very interesting to think about. One example could be that if we design buildings that could, there's a lot of people today that live on their own, or maybe students or guests, visiting researchers, or we could make a new type of house that is actually not new, but it's a type of house that has let's think like this: each individual needs a very, very nice room, not too small, not too big, and then we just put them together, and on a long stripe, let's say 6 of them, and we have this wonderful common space in front with the kitchen, and then we stack them like 8 on top of each other, and we we have this long balconies facing southwest with a lot of greenhouses on them, and then we make all this. We have put we use all the best systems that we have. Maybe solar panels on the roof if it's the right latitude. If we use the heat heating from the earth, and all these systems we put into this concept, and then we can say, as a lot of people could live, and each room, if it was in this part of the world, it works wonderfully, because each room has a warm floor and a warm ceiling, because there's a room above, and also on two of three sides, on 3 or 4 sides, it's given warmth from the others. But it seems like, and then I mean, even people that are, you know, in their whatever age and been divorced or just want to be on their own, you know, and doesn't want to go the way that you should in life, whatever, would be able to live there with low costs, and I think that would be, if that was a house that was placed in a city center or some very densely placed houses like that, the 8, 7, 8, 9 stories with where you had this density, but you still have this. It's one, maybe it's one way to think. It's not my invention, but I like it very much to think like that. Then I really think that I've been trying, you know, the small house you saw on the hillside with this long room with the fireplace. It's that was actually made for me. It was an experiment to try to make a villa that is only 50 square meters, that has a lot of value and has a lot to offer. Formally it's a cabin or a hytte, whatever, but if you think of it as a villa, it's rather very compact, and it was built for 1.3 million, which is a fifth or a fourth of what a usual house is built for today here, a small house. So that kind of compactness, and trying to make units that are really compact and put smaller units together. That's one way to think. The other is maybe to I think maybe the big thing about our culture now is that you remember the poem about we should have listened to the Native Americans. I think that's really fantastic to think about, because there are houses in North Africa that are made in such a way, not by installations and ventilation systems, but by architecture. The architecture itself cools them because of double walls and channels in walls, bringing out, taking out the warm air, and it's a knowledge that is fantastic. And it's been, I mean, when they build new houses in Morocco today, they have this fantastic problem of cooling, and although they had all this knowledge. So why are we not thinking about these things? And I like also very directly that I mean, one thing that really scares me is that we should continue the way we do. We think that if we continue to build the same level of comfort, or not comfort, but the sort of same standard as we do, but we make clever systems and clever technology, we can continue to build, to have a second and a third home of the same size, and you know, that's really, it's a very strange idea. I think that's it's more likely that we could maybe learn a lot from studying how people could live together or have been living together in earlier periods. Because the flock instinct is really strong in us, and I think it's been lost quite a lot with the conventions or the way things are organized today. you can be a very happy family, but a lot of people are not living in that situation, and then they can really. It's time maybe to think about, you know, to make the structure, the built structure that we inhabit. They cannot offer these things I talk about. So that's one thing. Sometimes I like to be much more radical and actually think that the only way to go is to really go to look at what the knowledge from earlier days, and to maybe try to do that, or to live like that. But it's not easy. I mean, but yeah.
Is there any other questions for the moment? Then I would like to announce the next and last lecture we will have in 2 weeks, which will be Philipp Scherer from the ETH in Zurich, who will show some artwork, Photoshop work. And now I would like to thank Fredrik and Per for this wonderful evening.
Thank you.